Hello and welcome to Vantage This Week, a show where we recap some of the biggest stories of the week gone by. President Donald Trump's second presidency is facing an early stress test. Pressure has been mounting on multiple fronts for him. The US dollar has slid to a multi-year low, while his approval ratings have turned negative. We will break down what this means for Trump's presidency. Closer home, India celebrated its 77th Republic Day. On the sidelines of the occasion, India and the EU signed a historic trade deal with each other. But the US has given a mixed response to the deal. We'll tell you more about this. In West Asia, Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 has met with a reality check. Riyadh has been forced to rethink its investments on some big infrastructure projects. We'll discuss why Saudi Arabia is going slow on those plans. Also on the show, why the internet is obsessed with a penguin. All this and more coming up. Let's get started. When Donald Trump returned to the White House, his supporters called him Teflon-coated, a political survivor, someone who managed to beat the odds and return to the White House with even bigger numbers. Since then, Trump has managed to shake off scandals, widespread criticism, and sustained international backlash for his policies. But 1 year into his presidency, his second presidency, cracks have begun to appear in Trump's armor. His presidency is facing a serious stress test. Pressure is building from all sides, the markets, the streets, and even some of his own backers. We'll start with the US dollar. It is the backbone of America's financial system and a global safe haven. But now it is losing its shine. The dollar has sunk to new lows. Over the past year, it has fallen by 10%. In fact, this week, the US dollar recorded its sharpest one-day drop. It fell to a 4-year low. This is against a basket of global currencies. We're talking about the global peers of the US dollar, like the euro, the Japanese yen, the British pound, the Canadian dollar, the Swedish krona, and the Swiss franc. The US dollar is getting weaker against these currencies, and the US president was asked about this. But he tried to brush off concerns. Donald Trump said a weaker currency was actually, and I'm quoting, great. Listen to this.
Well, Mr. President, with the current value of the dollar, do you think it's declined too much?
No, I think it's great. I mean, the value of the dollar, look at the business we're doing. No, dollar's doing great.
You want to see it decline?
You know, it's very interesting. If you look at China and Japan, I used to fight like hell with them because they always wanted to devalue their yen. You know that? The yen and the yuan. And they'd always want to devalue it. They devalue. And I said, not fair that you devalue because it's hard to compete when they devalue. But they always fought, no, our dollar's very good.
Trump built his entire political campaign on the promise of a strong America in every aspect. But now he says a weaker dollar is actually great. It's classic Trump. He's trying to spin this in his favor, but investors are not buying this line. Today, the US dollar showed fresh signs of weakness. One expert called it a falling chainsaw. And the dollar is only one front where Washington's weakness is showing. Pressure is building over Trump's immigration policies as well. The crackdowns by ICE have boomeranged on the president. ICE, as you know, is the US Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They have been cracking down on immigrants whom they call illegal aliens. The crackdown has been especially brutal in the state of Minnesota. ICE agents shot dead 2 American citizens in separate incidents and detained many children. This triggered a severe backlash. It got so bad that now the US president is rolling back his campaign. President Trump gave an interview. He called the incidents in Minnesota terrible. This was followed by an announcement where Trump said he would de-escalate a little bit in Minnesota.
We're going to de-escalate a little bit, but I will tell you, you look at the numbers, they're doing better than they've done in many years.
Trump may want to spin his campaign as a success, but on the ground there's a lot of anger, both among lawmakers and the civil society. In fact, some of Trump's biggest backers are also speaking out, like Apple CEO Tim Cook. He sent a memo to his employees. Tim Cook wrote that he was, and I'm quoting, he was heartbroken by the death of American citizens at the hands of ICE agents. We have a copy of the memo. Here is what Tim Cook wrote, and I'm quoting. I believe America is strongest when we live up to our highest ideals, when we treat everyone with dignity and respect, no matter who they are or where they're from. That's what Tim Cook wrote. Reports say he also spoke to Donald Trump and he called for de-escalation. Sam Altman is making similar appeals. Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT. He too sent a message to his employees, and I'm quoting again. What's happening with ICE is going too far. There is a big difference between deporting violent criminals and what's happening now, and we need to get the distinction right. Tim Cook and Sam Altman. These are just two examples. Multiple top executives have issued such statements against the crackdown on immigrants. Like the incoming CEO of Target. His name is Michael Fidelki. Target, as you would know, is one of America's biggest retailers. Its new CEO has called the shootings incredibly painful. Similarly, the CEO of Anthropic has issued a statement. Anthropic is the company behind the Claude AI platform. Their CEO called the events in Minnesota a horror. And these comments are worth noting because some of these names, some of these people were standing right next to Trump during his inauguration. When he took oath for a second time as president, these tech and business leaders have been among Donald Trump's top supporters. Now they're speaking out against his immigration policies. And these are not isolated events. Let's put these pieces together. A falling US dollar, domestic unrest, and pushback from industry leaders and allies. Clearly, President Trump is on the back foot, and it's reflecting in his approval ratings. A new poll is out. It shows that Trump's approval rating on the issue of immigration has fallen. 53% of Americans do not agree with Trump's approach. This is a president who ran on the issue of immigration. It was a centerpiece of his election campaign. But now a majority of Americans disapprove of his approach. Does this mean his presidency is under threat? Well, far from it. There is no serious challenge to Donald Trump, but the pressure is real and it's immense. And for now, Trump has chosen to respond with restraint. But again, this is a politician who has built his brand on shock and disruption, so it's hard to say how long the restraint will last and how soon the next disruption will be unleashed.
We did it. We delivered the mother of all deals.
Missed you a lot.
Now let us turn to India. It's among the countries that are on the receiving end of Trump's tariffs. Yesterday, India announced a major deal, a free trade agreement with the European Union. And the markets are cheering the news. Indian indices moved higher today. They closed the day with strong gains. The Sensex rose by nearly 500 points. Investors clearly welcome the announcement. The deal is being seen as a positive signal, especially when global trade remains mired in uncertainty. With this free trade pact, India gains access to a major market. The European Union is the world's largest trading bloc, and now India has better low-barrier access to it. The trade pact cuts tariffs in a big way. It covers more than 90% of all goods on both sides. Tariffs on these goods will either be removed or reduced. More than 90% of the goods. This will deepen trade links between India and the EU. So far, there is in fact a fair bit of optimism. At the same time, experts say that this pact is not a substitute for a deal between India and the US. And that India's trade with America is as important, if not more, than its trade with Europe. Neither India nor Europe have framed this free trade deal in the context of New Delhi's trade negotiations with Washington. These are two separate issues, they say. Sources say the political direction and sense of urgency to lock the deal with Europe came in February last year, when the European commissioners visited India. So Delhi and Brussels are trying to de-link it from their respective ties with America, but the US does not see it that way. Look at the Trump administration's reactions to the India-EU trade deal. The first reaction came from Jamieson Greer. He is Trump's top trade official. He was asked about the deal in an interview. Greer said India comes out on top in this agreement. And he gave 3 reasons for that: more market access into Europe, lower duties for Indian exports, and easier immigration. That's what India gets. Greer said these are the big positives for India. He was also asked about the India-US trade deal. And to this, Greer gave a vague answer. He raised the issue of Russian oil purchases again. He did acknowledge that India is cutting back on purchases from Russia, but according to Greer, and I'm quoting, India still has work to do. At the same time, he said a complete shift for India will be difficult because Russian oil comes at a discount, and that discount matters. It helps India keep its import bills low and keep prices in check. Now, this is a fair understanding of India's position. And yet, Washington continues to target India. So I guess the question here is, what do they want from India for a trade deal? Let me quote from what Greer said. I am in frequent contact with my counterpart in India. I have a great working relationship with him, but they still have a way to go. Now, statements like these only add to the confusion. Just days ago, Washington delivered a very different message, and this one came from Scott Bessent. He is the US Treasury Secretary. Bessent too spoke about Russian oil and the tariffs imposed on India for buying Russian oil. He said the US measures were working and that India's purchases have come down. He claimed that America's pressure has been effective. In fact, at one point, Scott Bessent almost appeared to take credit for the India-EU trade deal. He said Brussels did not join America in imposing tariffs on India because they wanted to sign a trade deal with India. Now, this comment highlights the contradictions and the divide within the Trump administration. One US official sees progress, another calls it unfinished business. Despite this, the engagements have not stopped. Yesterday, Hardeep Singh Puri gave a statement. He is India's petroleum minister. Puri said negotiations are at an advanced stage, negotiations between India and the US, and that a deal could happen, and I'm quoting, sooner rather than later. Of course, we've heard this before. So let me wrap by saying that this is a developing story and we will keep tracking it for you.
राज के ध्वज के साथ अपनी उपस्थिति दर्ज करा रहे हैं। ग्लेशियर ATV अल्टरनेट MK1 मुख्य युद्धक टैंक दिव्यास्त्र वाहन
आकाश India's first indigenously developed.
हम हैं सीमा सुरक्षा बल।
We have the Sarvatra Suraksha formation.
Nabha Sprisha. Flying majestically up over the skies of the Kartavya Paths.
It was a cold morning in New Delhi, but the air did not stay still for long because today the spirit of 1.4 billion Indians was on full display. After all, it's India's Republic Day today, January 26th. It's a day steeped in history and ritual. Every detail, like when it begins, how it begins, and how it unfolds, is shaped by decades of tradition. And this year was no different. The day began at the National War Memorial. Prime Minister Narendra Modi paid a tribute to India's brave hearts. He was joined by the 3 service chiefs. From there, all eyes turned to the Kartavya Path. It was time for the parade. Many of you watched it live this morning, but if you missed it, do not worry, we've got you covered. Here are the top highlights from this year's Republic Day parade. First, the chief guests. This time we had 2 of them, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President Antonio Costa. Clearly, the focus was on Europe. We will tell you why later on the show. For the moment, let's focus on the event today. Usually the chief guests and the Indian president arrive in limousines. This time a horse-drawn carriage was used. Both the EU chiefs rode with India's president from the Rashtrapati Bhavan.
The President of India. It's always a proud moment for each and every one of us when we welcome our foreign friends, our foreign dignitaries and special invitees here to celebrate along with us.
And here's some trivia. The horse-drawn carriage was used until 1984. That was the year when Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was assassinated. After that, the carriage was dropped. It was considered a security issue. In 2024, it was brought back. And today, President Murmu arrived with the two European leaders in it. After that, the parade kicked off, starting with the national anthem, followed by a 21-gun salute, and finally a shower of flower petals. 4 helicopters dropped them over the crowds.
1B helicopters inverted Y formation में उड़ान भरते हुए राष्ट्रीय ध्वज के साथ अपने हेलीकॉप्टर में फॉर्मेशन का नेतृत्व करते हुए जन समूह पर आकाश से हो रही है पुष्प वर्षा.
Then came the EU contingent. There were 4 flag bearers on 3 gypsies, a sign of growing India-EU ties.
The European Union contingent with 4 flag bearers. The right side gypsy, aligned alongside the second ceremonial jeep, carries the flag of the European Union, symbolizing the institutional unity of the 27 EU member states, and alongside the flag of the European Union military staff.
From there, it was a show of India's military might. It started with advanced attack helicopters, the likes of Rudra and the Apache. Then a display of India's missile defense systems, from the S-400 to the Shakti Ban, the Dhanush gun systems, the BrahMos missile system, and indigenous drones. The focus was on India's homemade defense systems. India also displayed the Suryastra, the first indigenous multi-caliber rocket launcher system.
शक्ति बाण और दिव्यास्त्र वाहन भारत की नई पीढ़ी के मानव रहित वॉरहेड शस्त्रागार को शक्तिबाण और दिव्यास्त्र वाहनों के माध्यम से देखा जा सकता है. दिव्यास्त्र वाहन की कमान सूबेदार किरण मेदर के हाथ.
Then came another first for the Republic Day parade. This was a first for the parade. The Him Yodha. It showcased how the Indian Army sustains itself in the toughest of terrains. And the main highlight were the animals. From Leh's Bactrian camels to Zanskari ponies, black kites and indigenous army hounds fully equipped with GPS and bulletproof systems. These are the silent warriors who helped the Indian Army, and this year the limelight was on them. It left the chief guests smiling.
भारतीय नस्ल के सैन्य श्वान, मधोल हाउंड, रामपुर हाउंड, ये सभी आज कर्तव्य पथ पर अपनी उपस्थिति दर्ज करा रहे हैं.
Next came the Indian regiments. Some of them are household names by now, like the Madras Regiment, the Rajputana Rifles, the Sikh Regiment. They're all in top form. Their feet moving in perfect harmony, the white gloves rising and falling together. It really is a sight to behold. And today, one marching group stood out. This 147 all-male CRPF contingent. For the first time ever, it was led by a woman. 26-year-old officer, CRPF Assistant Commandant Simran Bala.
Led by Assistant Commandant Simran Bala and Miss Surabhi Ravi. The motto of the CRPF, service and loyalty.
A key highlight was obviously Operation Sindoor, India's military operation against Pakistani-backed terrorists. It happened in May last year, and for the first time, a battle array formation was unveiled. Usually the army shows ceremonial displays, but this time it was about a battle-ready setup. And that's not all. There was also a glass-cased integrated operations center. It rolled down the Kartavya Path. It showed how the operation was carried out. And of course, there was the tri-services tableau. The theme was Victory Through Jointness. It showcased integration of the Indian Army, the Navy and the Air Force.
And now comes the tri-services tableau. of Indian Defence Forces depicting Operation Sindoor, victory through jointness, symbolizing the collective strength, unity and integration of the Indian Army, Navy and Air Force in safeguarding national sovereignty.
So that was military and might. But what's a Republic Day without culture? On the 26th of January, the Kartavya Path is not just a road, it becomes a canvas. All shades of Indian culture find representation on it. And today was no different. Every Republic Day parade is built around themes. This year's theme was 150 years of Vande Mataram, that is India's national song. There were 30 tableaus this year, 17 from Indian states and the rest from government organizations and ministries. Some of them stood out, like Kerala, that highlighted India's first water metro, Nagaland, which showcased the Hornbill Festival, Maharashtra, which focused on Ganesh Utsav, and Jammu and Kashmir, depicting its rich heritage and culture. Take a look.
भारत की पहली वाटर मेट्रो और 100% डिजिटल साक्षरता की उपलब्धि को आत्मनिर्भरता का मंत्र.
Nagaland's tableau presents the Hornbill Festival as a vibrant expression of culture-led tourism.
Maharashtra showcasing creation of idol of Lord Ganesh, Ganesh Visarjan, and a temple representing Ashtavinayak of Maharashtra.
And now for the finale, the much-awaited flypast. The Indian Air Force put on a brilliant show with around 29 aircraft, including 16 fighter jets. You had your MiGs and Sukhois, the Jaguar, the C-17 transport carrier, 6 Rafale aircraft formed the Vajrang formation. It is a specialized high-precision aerial display. But what stole the show was the Vijay formation, with 1 Rafale flying at a speed of 900 kilometers per hour. Take a look.
Vajrang formation में 6 Rafale विमान.
Marvel the choreography of power and precision. Vajrang, led by Group Captain Arun Kumar.
And with that, it was an end to India's 77th Republic Day celebration. Some of you may wonder, why do we do this every single year? Well, the idea of a parade goes back centuries. Ancient kingdoms displayed their armies. European nation-states turned it into a modern ritual, a way for the state to show authority. The British brought this tradition to India with their grand military parades. But after independence, India reclaimed it. In 1951, the first Republic Day parade was held not to impress an empire, but to announce a republic. Over time, India added its own signature, military might alongside cultural pride. It's a fitting celebration of a remarkable nation, and over the years, while the themes have evolved, the underlying idea has been constant, an unwavering faith in a young republic, rooted in an ancient civilization. Happy Republic Day to everyone. For years, Saudi Arabia made one thing clear. Money would not be a problem. If a city needed to be built in the desert, it would be built. If a cube needed to be taller than skyscrapers, it would rise. If the future looked impossible, Saudi Arabia would fund it anyway. But now something has changed. Take Muqab, for example. 1,300 feet tall, 1,300 feet wide, and 1,300 feet high. This was supposed to be the world's largest skyscraper. Once built, it could hold 20 empire buildings, 20 of them. Just imagine the scale. This was supposed to be the beating heart of the new Murabba. This is a $50 billion downtown district, $50 billion district. It was meant to transform Riyadh. The pitch was to turn it into a global capital of culture and technology. But now that project has apparently been shelved because Saudi Arabia does not know if it makes financial sense. They're not optimistic about returns, so the work has been stopped. That's what reports say. And if it was just Muqab, it wouldn't be a headline. It's just one project. But there's a clear pattern emerging. Look at the NEOM. It was Saudi Arabia's crown jewel mega project. Reports say it is being dramatically scaled back. The focus of NEOM was this, the line. It was planned as a 170-kilometer long mirrored city. Now it is being redesigned. They want it to be far smaller. Also, the timeline for the project was initially 2030. It had to be completed by 2030, but now it's being pushed back. Reports say it could be 2040 or even beyond. And here's where it gets really interesting. Saudi Arabia is now asking its wealthiest families to step in. They want these families to invest more at home, invest domestically. So what is the story? Is Saudi Arabia running out of cash? Is the oil money drying up, or is it something else? Well, Riyadh is not running out of money, not yet, but it is definitely running out of easy money. You see, Saudi Arabia sits on massive oil money, but in 2025, oil prices went down by almost 20%. It was the biggest annual loss since 2020, and that was the year when the pandemic hit the world, 2020. 2025 was close, and it's not getting better. As we speak, oil prices are hovering around $60 a barrel, and that is a problem. Economists say Saudi Arabia needs closer to $100 a barrel just to balance its budget. $100 a barrel is what they need. Right now, it's $60. Oil still makes up more than 60% of the government's revenue. So when prices stay low, oil prices, when they stay low, budget deficits increase. Banks come under pressure, liquidity gets tightened, and debt markets are tapped more aggressively. And then there is the PIF, the Public Investment Fund. It was central to the plan to transform Saudi Arabia, turning oil money into a post-oil future. Until a decade ago, it was a sleepy domestic fund. But now it's a global player, the PIF. It is buying stakes in companies like Uber. It is buying stakes in Formula One and tech companies. You name it and the PIF has invested in it. On paper, the PIF controls close to $1 trillion in assets. But here is the catch. A lot of that money is locked into long-term projects, in hard-to-sell assets and ventures that are not generating cash yet. Some reports say the PIF has less free cash for new mega projects than it once did. Having said that, it's not like Saudi Arabia has stopped spending money altogether. Riyadh has only changed its focus. You see, Mohammed bin Salman is the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. He's the de facto ruler of the kingdom. A few years ago, he unveiled something called Vision 2030. It was a blueprint to remake the Saudi economy, to diversify from oil, and to open it up to the world. And all these mega projects were part of that vision. But now reality is sinking in. Most of these plans are not feasible. There is very little investment. The kingdom is uncertain about returns, so Riyadh is looking at projects that actually bring money, which is why NEOM is being reshaped into data centers and AI infrastructure. Saudi Arabia is also hosting the Expo 2030. It is preparing for the 2034 World Cup. It is funding massive housing and transport programs. These are all initiatives that promise immediate returns. You could say Saudi Arabia is not running out of ambition. It is just coming to terms with its limits. Our next story is from Iran. The protests have subsided, but the threat from America has not. Will the US attack Iran? That question refuses to go away because Washington is sending mixed signals. Trump has moved what he calls his armada near Iran. It's a signal from Pentagon. That's the US Defense Ministry. This kind of military movement shows preparation for a possible attack. But on the other hand, Trump is suggesting that he wants to talk to Iran, that he does not want to use his military in West Asia. So what does the US president really want? Is this a countdown to another war, or is this just muscle flexing? Well, here's what we know. Earlier this week, Donald Trump made a statement. He said the US has a massive armada heading towards Iran. That's his way of saying that powerful warships are in the region and they're ready to strike Iran. Now look at what this armada includes. 1 aircraft carrier, fighter jets, destroyers and combat ships. And that's not it. Reports say that the US has sent another warship to the region. It is called the USS Delbert Black. This takes the total number of American warships in the region to 6. That's what you call a military buildup. We saw the same near Venezuela last month, and we know how that ended. The US abducted the Venezuelan president. Having said that, Iran is not Venezuela. It has a bigger, stronger military, and the US knows that. The US knows that Iran is not a pushover. Meanwhile, the rhetoric from Washington continues. Here's what happened at a US cabinet meeting yesterday. Their Secretary of War, or what you'd call a defense minister, is Pete Hegseth. He said that the US is prepared to attack Iran.
You may want to say something about the large fleet of ships that's heading over to the Middle East.
With Iran right now, ensuring that they have all the options to make a deal. They should not pursue nuclear capabilities. We will be prepared to deliver whatever this president expects of the War Department.
Officials say that Trump has not made a decision. He's still reviewing his options, but he has also been wanting to talk to Iran. Listen to this.
On Iran, Mr. President, have you had any conversations with Iran in the last few days, and are you planning on any?
I have had, and I am planning on it, yeah. We have a lot of very big, very powerful ships sailing to Iran right now, and it would be great if we didn't have to use them.
So that is Trump's position. He wants to stop Iran from developing nuclear weapons, and he wants Tehran to come back to the talking table. How is Iran responding? They say there will be no negotiations under threats. In fact, Iran has now added 1,000 drones to its military. These are drones built after last year's 12-day war, the war that was fought between Iran and Israel. It's also the war where the US attacked Iranian nuclear sites in June last year. Tehran now says it is ready to respond immediately to any attack.
Preparedness for rapid combat operations and decisive responses to any form of aggression continues to guide Iran's defense planning in line with anticipated threats.
At the same time, Tehran is also looking for de-escalation. They do not want a war. Iran's foreign minister is in Turkiye for talks today. Turkiye is offering to mediate between the US and Iran because Ankara says a war in Iran would shake the entire region. So it believes that the resumption of Iran-US nuclear talks is vital.
The countries in the region desire peace, stability, and tranquility. In this context, we call on the parties to come to the negotiating table. We believe that addressing the problems individually when the negotiating table is established will facilitate reaching a solution.
Tehran says any diplomacy hinges on threats ending, but it has refused to reduce its missile work.
I should also state unequivocally that Iran's defensive and missile capabilities and Iran's missiles will never be the subject of any negotiations. I do not think any country is prepared to compromise with anyone over its own security and defense. The security of the Iranian people is no one else's business, and we will preserve and expand our defensive capabilities to whatever extent is necessary to defend the country.
Now, in the middle of this, Europe has also stepped in. The European Union has designated the IRGC as a terrorist organization. IRGC is Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. They are not the regular Iranian army. They are a parallel force, a more powerful force. They were created after Iran's revolution in 1979, and they have one job: to protect the Iranian regime. Not the Iranian people, the Iranian regime. Now, the US has designated them as terrorists. The EU, rather, has designated them as terrorists. Why did they do that? Because of the deadly crackdown during recent protests.
In Iran, horrific crackdown on protesters has come at a heavy human cost. The EU already has sweeping sanctions in place, and today ministers agreed to designate Iran Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization.
In turn, Iran is preparing to declare the EU's armed forces terrorists. So where does this leave leave us tonight, rather? With a few harsh realities. Washington is using military pressure to force talks. Tehran is building up its military to deter an attack. One side is saying make a deal. The other side is saying remove the threats first. I guess the question is who will blink first? We'll be tracking this story for you. In India, the budget session began this week. On Sunday, February 1st, the finance minister will present the annual budget, and today the prime minister set the tone for it. He gave a statement outside parliament and his message was clear. India's reforms drive will continue.
आत्मविश्वास भरा हिंदुस्तान आज विश्व के लिए आशा की किरण भी बना है, आकर्षण का केंद्र भी बना है। ये फ्री ट्रेड फॉर एम्बिशियस भारत है। ये फ्री ट्रेड फॉर एस्पिरेशनल यूथ है। ये फ्री ट्रेड फॉर आत्मनिर्भर भारत है। और मुझे पक्का विश्वास है, खास करके जो भारत के मैन्युफैक्चरर्स हैं, वे इस अवसर को अपनी क्षमताएं बढ़ाने के लिए करेंगे।
The Prime Minister also spoke about the trade deal with the EU. He said India is moving forward from an age of long-term problems to an era of long-term solutions. And this shift will be reflected in policy. The Prime Minister described India as a bright spot for the world. And the numbers back this claim. The government released the economic survey today. This is an annual exercise. Think of this economic survey as a health report for the economy. It shows where the country stands and where it is headed. And the headline number looks strong. India's GDP is projected to grow between 6.8 and 7.2%. This is for the next financial year, 6.8 to 7.2. So despite a fragile global economy and a slowdown in trade, India's growth momentum is expected to remain intact. The report also commented on the global economy, and it sounded a clear warning. It said there is a 10 to 20% chance of a financial crisis in 2026. A 10 to 20% chance of a financial crisis this year, a global financial crisis that could be worse than the crash of 2008. And even the most optimistic scenario is hardly reassuring. The survey warns that if global conditions remain as they were in 2025, and if economic fundamentals stay weak, then the result could be greater instability and deeper shocks. Basically, the global economic outlook is fragile, uncertain, and increasingly risky. That's the global picture. What about India? The survey has identified some positives for India. Here's what's working for India. Inflation in India remains low, consumption is steady, and balance sheets are healthy both for companies and for households. So those are the positives. But of course, there are challenges too. Economists warn that India still has a trade gap, especially with the United States. There is no trade agreement yet, and that is hurting key parts of the Indian economy, especially the labor-intensive ones, like textiles and leather. These industries have been the worst hit by the US tariffs. The economic survey said that trade talks with the US are on, and they may conclude this year. Trade talks with the United States may conclude this year. If that happens, some of the pressure might ease off. But until the deal is done, there is room for risk. And that risk is evident in the performance of the Indian rupee. The rupee remains under stress. Today, the Indian currency hit a new record low. It fell past 92 against the US dollar, only to recover later. The rupee stabilized at 91.95 against the dollar. And it happened only after intervention from India's central bank, that's the RBI, the Reserve Bank of India. Reports say it stepped in and defended the rupee. And this fall continues even though the economic data is largely positive. You could say the rupee's behavior is out of sync with India's growth numbers, and it reveals the complicated balancing act that India faces. It must manage high growth, it must keep inflation low, and it must ensure stability for the rupee all at once. That is the expectation going into the budget. Also, after the trade deal with the EU, the global spotlight is on India. So what should we expect from the budget? Reports say the government has some clear priorities. It wants to make it easier to run businesses in India. It wants to cut the red tape and further simplify the rules, which is much needed. It also plans to spend more on roads, railways, and public projects. This is to create more jobs and keep the growth momentum intact. At the same time, the government wants to control spending. Now, we won't speculate on what's coming. The budget will be announced on Sunday, and we'll be covering it live here on Firstpost. So make sure you tune in for the speech and for the analysis on a Vantage special edition this Sunday. AI is everywhere in our world, in boardrooms, in offices, on laptops, and inside your workflow. CEOs say artificial intelligence boosts efficiency. It saves 12 hours a week. But workers do not agree. So what is the truth? Is AI genuinely making us more productive? Or is this another tech hype cycle with big promises and small returns? Let's start with the optimistic side. In controlled studies, AI looks quite powerful, like writing, analysis, data-heavy tasks. Generative AI improves performance by 38 to 49%. Task completion time drops by up to 40%. Output quality improves by around 18%. In some roles, novices perform almost as good as experts. Consulting work, research summaries, customer support, and administrative tasks, these are AI-suitable zones, and in these cases, the gains are real. PwC's data backs this up. PwC is PricewaterhouseCoopers. It's a consulting firm. It looks at data from 2018 to 2024. It says productivity growth in AI-exposed industries has quadrupled. It has gone up by 27%. 72% of AI users say they feel more productive. 70% say the quality of their work has improved. At the task level, AI often works. But then comes the disconnect. CEOs say AI saves them over 12 hours a week. But nearly 40% of workers say that they are not saving any time at all. So what explains this gap? You see, AI productivity is uneven. Executives see dashboards, workers deal with prompts, errors, and verification. And studies show that workers save only 1.6 to 5.4% of total work hours. What about productivity? That only translates into about 1% of productivity gains. In fact, even where AI works, workers feel uneasy. PwC's survey in Hong Kong shows this. 61% use AI at work, 77% report higher productivity, and only 24% feel more job security. Just 19% see higher pay. And here's the part that most AI demos do not show. Rework. Nearly 40% of all AI time savings are lost to checking and fixing errors. 77% of employees report productivity drops because they have to do a bunch of other things. Things like reviewing AI mistakes, learning new tools, and extra coordination work. Again, this is crucial. When AI is used outside its frontier, say like for complex strategy or ambiguous tasks, then performance drops by 19 to 24%. Now you can zoom out and check. Despite billions spent on AI and data centers, economists are asking one question: where is the productivity boom? One leading skeptic points to a familiar idea, the so-low paradox. What is that? You see, during the 1970s and 1980s, computers were everywhere, They were widely present. The IT industry was the talk of the town, but its impact was not showing, especially in productivity statistics. Today, AI is in a similar situation. The technology may be transformative, but it's not showing in GDP numbers. Economists say that AI may not boost efficiency significantly in the near future. They're looking at just 0.5% to 0.7% increase over a decade. And this is where the hype meets hard reality. 95% of enterprise AI pilots fail. They do not deliver any meaningful ROI, any meaningful return on investment. An MIT study found that 95% of firms saw no revenue growth, 95%. Governments are watching this closely. India's economic survey this year makes a critical point. AI boosts productivity, but it raises job risks if adopted recklessly. And the reason is simple. AI raises the productivity of capital faster than labor. And governments and countries have to be cognizant of this fact. They must strike a balance. So I come back to the question we started with. Is AI boosting productivity? The honest answer is both yes and no. Yes, at the task level in the right contexts, but no at the economy-wide level, at least not yet. You could say the boost is selective. It concentrates gains in large firms and it often shifts work rather than eliminating it. The paradox is not that AI does not work. The paradox is that what AI does well is narrow, and what humans value is not just speed. So I guess the real question is not whether AI boosts productivity. The real question is who benefits, where do they benefit, and at what cost? And that debate is just getting started. Our next story is about Elon Musk. He's facing an unusual challenge. The country that helped him grow is now becoming his biggest rival. I'm talking about China. For years, Musk has praised Beijing publicly. Tesla, his EV company, has also built factories in China, but now things are shifting. Chinese companies are giving Musk a tough competition. China's BYD, for instance, is outselling Tesla. In the meantime, Beijing also plans to do something else. Build AI data centers in space. This is something that Musk is also planning to do. So why is China challenging Musk, and can Musk compete with a rival that he still depends on? Our next report explores.
Elon Musk built an empire by betting on China. Now China is betting against him. For years, the relationship worked beautifully. Tesla's Shanghai factory became the crown jewel, producing more than half the company's cars worldwide. Chinese suppliers provided nearly 40% of Tesla's batteries. The profits rolled in, and Musk returned the favor. He visited in 2023, heaping praise on China's innovation and speed.
And I tell people throughout the world, the cars we produce here are not just the most efficient production, but also the highest quality. I just feel like there's so much that gets accomplished. There's so much positive energy.
While Washington and Beijing traded barbs, Musk stayed carefully neutral. Smart business move, or so it seemed. Because while Musk was being diplomatic, something else was happening. Chinese companies were studying him, learning from him, and quietly overtaking him. Today, Tesla is no longer the world's top electric vehicle seller. China's BYD is. The Chinese automaker sold over 2 million EVs in 2025, and Tesla, nowhere close. And it's not just about volume. Tesla's profits have cratered. Sales have dropped for 2 consecutive years. Chinese competitors aren't just cheaper. They are faster, sharper, and, at times, more hungrier. They're taking markets Tesla once owned. So what's Musk's response? He's walking away from the car business. Not entirely, but the pivot is clear. The Model S and Model X, they are being phased out. Factory floors in California, they are being retooled for robots and not vehicles. Musk's new pitch is Tesla isn't a car company anymore, it's an AI and robotics company. Fair enough, except there is a problem. Beijing is following him there too. Musk wants to build AI data centers in space. These are massive orbital systems that are solar-powered and will process data beyond Earth's atmosphere. Beijing just announced the exact same plan. It also plans to build giant AI data centers in space. The launch timeline? 5 years. State-owned companies are already designing prototypes. Think about what that means. The country that powered Musk's rise is now racing him in cars, artificial intelligence, and space. It is not that Beijing will have a smooth path to that. China faces its own set of issues when it comes to space. Musk's SpaceX is a leader in reusable rocket technology. Beijing has so far not been able to achieve that, but their intent is clear. Every move he makes, China mirrors, or counters, or accelerates past. And here's the trap Musk finds himself in. He can't openly fight back. His factories are in China. The supply chains run through the country. And his profits? They too depend on China. If he criticizes them openly, Elon Musk risks losing it all. But if he stays silent, Chinese companies keep gaining ground. It is a no-win situation for him. The partner that made him is now the rival trying to break him.
Pakistan has found a new way to make headlines, and no, it's not about what their leader said. Islamabad is now threatening to boycott the T20 Cricket World Cup. The tournament starts next month. It is being co-hosted by India and Sri Lanka. Pakistan is saying it might pull out. The reason? They're upset about another team getting dropped from the tournament. Another team pulling out, rather, that's Bangladesh. Last week, Dhaka was removed after refusing to play in India. And now Pakistan has made it their fight. In typical Islamabad style, can't get their own house in order, but forever ready to play the troublemaker when it comes to India. Here's a report.
It started as a cricket tournament story, but it has now turned into a political standoff and unnecessary drama. Pakistan is now reportedly weighing whether to pull out of the ICC Men's T20 World Cup 2026. And the fallout could reshape international cricket. The trigger is Bangladesh's removal from the tournament. The International Cricket Council replaced Bangladesh with Scotland last week. This was after the country refused to play its group matches in India. Dhaka cited security concerns, but the ICC did not accept a venue change after an independent assessment found no elevated threat. New Delhi had also assured full security.
तो चाहा था कि बांग्लादेश खेले, हमने उनको पूरा भरोसा दिया था कि यहाँ पूरी सिक्योरिटी दी जाएगी, कहीं किसी किस्म की कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगी, पूर्ण सुरक्षा प्रदान की जाएगी उनको. लेकिन जो है उनका फैसला रहा, तो पूरे शेड्यूल को लास्ट मिनट पे चेंज करना बहुत कठिन काम है, बहुत मुश्किल काम है. इसलिए जो है ये उनका फैसला था, तब आईसीसी को फिर उसका जो नेक्स्ट था स्कॉटलैंड, उसको लाना पड़ा.
Pakistan's cricket board backed Bangladesh publicly. The board's chairman, Mohsin Naqvi, called the decision unfair. He argued that Bangladesh deserved the same flexibility other teams have received in the past and threatened Islamabad could rethink its own participation. India, of course, called out Pakistan for unnecessarily meddling in the dispute.
पाकिस्तान इसमें बेवजह पड़ा हुआ, एक झूठी जो है वो बांग्लादेश को चढ़ाना, पाकिस्तान को सब नहीं करना चाहिए. पाकिस्तान ने बांग्लादेशियों के साथ क्या जाति की है दुनिया जानती, बांग्लादेशी जानते कि कितनी बड़ी जाति उनके साथ की थी, तब मुल्क को अलग हुआ था. अब उनको पहुंच गए हैं, उनको कि कुछ जो है हम समझा बुझा के उनको गलत रास्ते पे ले जाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, उनके हमदर्द बन के, जो कि गलत.
But here's the thing. Pakistan's cricket board is not the final authority that will make the call. Naqvi has clearly said it is Shehbaz Sharif's government.
The final call on Pakistan's participation lies with the government, and the PCB is bound to follow instructions from the top.
Naqvi says the Prime Minister's call will be final and binding, and reports suggest a decision could be made as soon as this Friday or next Monday. Meanwhile, Pakistan has also floated another option. It may reportedly boycott the group match against India. That match is scheduled for February 15th in Colombo. But the big question is this about safety or is this about political pressure? Because the ICC has already signalled it will not take a boycott lightly. Reports say the International Cricket Board has warned of unprecedented sanctions if Pakistan withdraws. That includes restricting foreign players from featuring in the Pakistan Super League. It could also mean major revenue losses through reduced ICC funding, and bilateral cricket with the country could also be suspended. This matters because Pakistan's cricket is already under strain. Its cricket board has cut domestic match fees sharply for players. An audit report has also flagged financial irregularities and governance concerns worth $21 million over the past 2 years. So a World Cup withdrawal would not just be symbolic for Islamabad. It will come with serious financial damage. Interestingly, Bangladesh has played in Pakistan despite several security issues. So it's rich for Dhaka to cite security concerns in India, and even richer for Islamabad to grandstand. But then, this is what Pakistan does best, be it their politics or their cricket, forever looking to stir up trouble.
It's Monday again, and yes, the Monday blues are real. So if you're feeling low, we may have just the cure for you. One penguin, that's it, just one penguin. If you haven't seen the video yet, here's the headline. It has gone viral. Social media cannot stop talking about this penguin. Memes are everywhere. They're calling it the nihilist penguin. The internet is obsessed, so obsessed that even the White House did not want to miss out. That's right, the White House jumped on the trend, but there was just one small problem: fact-checking. The post shows Donald Trump with a penguin heading off to Greenland. But this is also completely wrong because penguins do not live in the Northern Hemisphere. You won't find them in Greenland or anywhere near it. Penguins live in Antarctica, which is in the Southern Hemisphere. This is Geography 101, but it seems the White House may have skipped that class too. So what is the story of this penguin and why is the internet so obsessed? Our story begins in the year 2007. That's when Encounters at the End of the World came out. It was a documentary by German filmmaker Werner Herzog. He travels to Antarctica. He and his team observe a colony of penguins, but one of them breaks apart from the colony. The penguins were all going in one direction, but this one stopped and started walking in the other direction towards the mountains. Now, penguins normally stay close to the sea. They also stay close to other penguins. So this was unusual behavior. Herzog even calls it the death march. The penguin may not have survived the journey. We do not know what happened to it. But nearly 2 decades later, that penguin is an internet sensation. So what's so special about it? Why is this one silent walk? Why has it struck a nerve across the world? The answer is quite simple. People see themselves in this penguin. And this is not a funny meme. It is a relatable one. The penguin does not panic, it does not protest, it does not break down, it walks away, just walks away. And that quiet exit feels very familiar in 2026. The word the internet chose for this penguin is nihilism. Nihilism is the idea that nothing has inherent meaning, no grand purpose, no guaranteed reward, just existence. And in a world of geopolitical turmoil, economic anxiety, and social media, it's what a lot of people are feeling: burnout, exhaustion, the pressure to always perform. Doing everything right, yet still feeling empty. And the numbers back this up. In the US, 82% of employees were at risk of burnout in 2025. More than 1 billion people worldwide are living with anxiety and depression. So the penguin has become a symbol of so what? But here's the important part. Scientists say that this penguin was not making a philosophical statement by walking away. It was probably just disoriented or unwell or simply lost. And this was not rebellion. The internet just saw it as giving up. But maybe in this world of burnout and anxiety, it was the most plausible explanation. Although here's another way to look at it. You can also see it as a signal that something needs to change. Like the penguin, you do not have to walk away from life. You have to walk back into it differently. You don't have to quit everything. You just have to stop pretending that you're not tired. So if the Monday blues are hitting you today, let this penguin be a reminder that it's okay to pause, it's okay to feel lost, and it's okay to admit that you're exhausted. But unlike the penguin, you don't have to disappear into the mountains. You just have to find your way back one step at a time, because sometimes the bravest thing to do is not to walk away, but to turn around. What's the one thing that France gave the world? It's not croissants, it's not wine, it's not the Eiffel Tower, and it's definitely not inspiration for a Netflix series. It's for sure. If you don't understand what that is, I meant for sure. French President Emmanuel Macron went to Davos to project strength, but the internet got stuck on his accent. And two words in particular, for sure. Take a look.
Sometimes it's too slow, for sure. And needs to be reformed, for sure. But which is predictable, loyal. For sure.